Good morning, everybody, or just afternoon, 1 minute past, I think. A big welcome to everyone on the webinar today. It's another Sutton Chamber webinar that we've been keen to use these as a way to really shine a light on some of our members and give them the opportunity to really provide some interesting advice, insight, and thoughts, and a discussion point with all those on the call. I can see there's lots of people on who have joined us now, which is great. We'll just give it a few more minutes before we start. Few housekeeping points. You'll see the chat box on the right hand side. We have Jess Uppel, our ever reliable events coordinator, in the background, doing all the hard work, making sure this runs okay. So if you've got any technical issues, any problems, as always, sign in, sign out again, restart the process. Normally works. And obviously, we'll look forward to getting you back on board. So yeah, it looks like we've got most of the people on the call now who have registered, which is brilliant. So yeah, we'll start. So welcome everyone to the Sutton Coldfield Chamber, how to market your way out of recession and back to success marketing webinar with Sutton Chamber members WAA Chosen. We have Dan Clifford, who's a key person within WAA, and he's really going to give some interesting insights around some of the sort of regular questions being asked by marketing managers of key brands and large brands across the UK. A bit of background on Dan. He joined the agency in 2010 as he's now managing director, and really works across the various different strands of WAA Chosen, which I'm sure he'll talk more about later on. You'll also see on the screen our ever reliable and engaging president, Katie Hale. Katie is a marketing consultant of some years, and is here to help chair the Q&A and really bring some more marketing knowledge to the discussion, rather than my layman terms understanding of all the things that are going on. So as I said, please ask questions. You've got the question box. You'll see there's a logo on the right hand side for the ask a question. As Dan is making those the presentation, there will be some questions and some polls in there for you to engage with as well. If you've got any questions, and we really do encourage those for the Q&A, please put them in there, and then Jess will bring them up on screen once the Q&A begins in a few minutes time. So Dan, Katie, welcome. Hope you're both well.
Thanks.
And, brilliant. And with that, I will pass over to Dan, and over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Chris. And welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. I won't or do my best not to kind of bore you with PowerPoint today. So although I have got a couple of slides for guidance, we'll move through them quite swiftly. And as I say, most of it will be quite conversation in terms of looking at kind of some of the things that are going on in the marketplace at the moment, and also some of the ways that we might react towards it. So just a bit of context. I don't want to dwell too much on WAA or our kind of background as an agency, but just to give you a bit of a view of the type of the people we deal with. And when I'm talking about the questions that I'm being asked for or asked about for clients, then you'll have a kind of bit of a view of the type of organisations they are and the way that they might be structured. So just a bit about the agency as a whole. So there's about 80 people that work at WAA, and we're structured in some specialist hubs that I'll talk about in a bit more detail. But we focus very heavily in certain areas. It's areas where we've got a lot of expertise. So we've got a hub which is called Open Road, which is automotive based. We've got Stir, that's F&B business, and it's got big clients in that sector. And then we've got High Vis, that's building and construction. And then also Send, which is a direct mail business that has quite a big distribution and warehouse side to it. And obviously all of those have got some of their own specialist clients, and also we work together in collaboration to bring our clients together across the disciplines too. So we do really work on the full kind of marketing mix. So across the business in those areas, we've got a huge amount of digital expertise, strategists, we do partnership marketing, loyalty and CRM. So as you look at the questions that I'll be showing you that I'm kind of posed by clients on a regular basis, you'll see that there's a kind of a very wide mix of the type of disciplines that we focus on as a business. We are kind of 34 years old as a business, so we've been established in Sutton Coldfield for all of that time. Our founder, Andy Wilson, obviously deals with and focuses on some really big clients, but he's very community minded as well, very proud of the roots in Sutton Coldfield, and has invested a lot of the time and effort in trying to make sure that we stay a real kind of part of the Sutton and Birmingham community, both in terms of as an employer, but also as a kind of community member. So we've done things in the past like sponsor the community games in Sutton Coldfield. We've also always got a big presence at things like the fun run and that kind of thing. We're always very keen to collaborate with local businesses and influencers in the area. So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you guys today. And we do focus really heavily on our status as an employer. So we're really proud to be in the Sunday Times list of the kind of best small companies to work for. And we've actually got gold invested in people status, which is a status that only a very kind of fractional percentage of UK businesses do get. So it's really important to us that our kind of our reputation as a big employer in the area is based on obviously the way that we treat people and the way that we do interact with our local community. So as I said, that's kind of always been really at the heart of what we do. We work for some really sizable clients. So some of the insight I'll give you today is based on kind of feedback and interactions with these type of businesses. And you'll see when I mentioned about things like automotive, we work with people like the Volkswagen Group in that area. In food and drink, we work for Diageo and Britvic. So some of the kind of the biggest and leading drinks organizations that are, as you can imagine, kind of leading the agenda at the moment in terms of how businesses bounce back and when they bounce back from the COVID crisis. And then in building and construction, the likes of Saint-Gobain, who obviously own Juice and Gibbs and Dandy, and then also brands like Tarmac. So again, really key players in the kind of infrastructure of those areas that I've talked about. So heavily influential. So they're talking to the government, they're talking to influencers about actually how these industries will be able to survive and hopefully prosper in a recovery period after the uncertain times that we're kind of currently living in. So as I say, a bit about the company. Founded in '86, we have formulated plans for clients through 2 previous recessions. So we've got quite a lot of experience of obviously dealing with quite uncertain times. And I think actually we've had a real run of uncertainty, which is probably one of the most crippling factors in marketing as a whole. And actually Brexit was one that, whilst it wasn't a recession, it was very prohibitive because people were delaying decisions and refusing to take kind of positive action until they understood what the world was going to look like. And that's exactly the situation that businesses don't want to be in. So there was a lot of kind of pressing the pause button. That happened with things like general elections. Obviously we've had more than our fair share of those in the last few years because of circumstances. So all of these things have given us the experience of how to deal with uncertainty and actually what are the kind of the best survival and thriving mechanisms that you can have in that period of time as well. I mentioned about the group functions in the company and our specialist knowledge, and that's really important because what we can do is we can knowledge share amongst clients. So it's not giving away trade secrets, but one of the things that our clients value the most is that actually you can imagine if you're a pub chain like Marsden's, actually understanding what Britvic's view of the world is, how that's going to work, or what Pringles think about snacks being put into pubs and bars as things move forward. allows them to collaborate together and also understand how that they can share each other's agenda to work more effectively. So that's something that we do a lot in the hubs. And then I talked about send a bit, and you'll see as I go forward that direct mail and data has been one of the areas that actually has been kind of had a huge resurgence, particularly during this period, as people realise that they need to find new and different ways to cut through and talk to customers. I mentioned that we do work with the kind of industry leading organisations, and actually what we've kind of found is that actually we've outperformed as a company the sectors and the marketing sector in difficult times, and that's because we've always had the attitude of thinking fast and taking action very quickly. And one of the things that we did in this crisis was exactly that, which was actually, rather than waiting to see, which was what some people did, we wanted to understand how we could help clients as fast as possible, and how we could invest in them and our relationships to make sure that we could be a real kind of trusted partner to them as they kind of work their way out of this crisis. Just a quick bit of context, because I think it's worth bearing in mind that obviously people will have drawn marketing plans up for the year, and we drew them up with clients and spent a huge amount of time planning at the end of 2019 what their kind of 2020 schedules were going to look like and what was going to be important. And obviously things like the kind of continued growth of social media and digital presence, but actually the kind of integrated approach to the whole experience. So not actually just putting stuff online, but actually if you take a pub environment, for instance, if you're talking on your website or social channels, how does that then get brought to life when you go to the pub itself? How do the staff make that feel like one experience, and how does it all join together? The kind of personalization of the whole experience, so that was actually key, is that people wanted to feel like any marketing that was being done was being tailored towards them. And then premiumization, so a real focus on added value for the experience. So actually, if you take, for instance, the kind of what are the most talked about topics on social, that kind of make it worth my money. So again, if you take a drinks experience, actually what people want is that if they're going to pay money for a really nice cocktail, they want it to be photographable, something they can put on Instagram, start a story for them and their friends, and fuel a conversation to make their kind of life more interesting as well. And again, that's something that we've seen a lot over the last kind of year or so. Honesty and transparency in things like offers and rewards. You'll have seen some of the TV advertising about kind of no tricks anymore. And actually, people started to really rebel against complicated mechanics that looked they were designed to be appealing but never pay out. And this year had a much more focus on being really honest with customers and actually making your marketing really easy to understand and straightforward to deliver. And then a big focus on loyalty, but no longer through points and cards. So you'll have seen that, there was a big craze a few years ago around things like the supermarket reward cards and that kind of thing, and everyone had wallets full of them. That started to move away, but in different areas. There's still a massive focus on loyalty, but it's actually now how you engender it in relationship rather than just kind of purely transactional factors. So kind of post-COVID, the way that things have changed a lot is obviously experiences. So you take the trend of premium experiences, but then understand how that's impacted by social distancing measures. So if you take one of our other hubs in the kind of building and construction trade, if you've spent a lot of time working out how you make your customer experience at a builder's merchant, one of the leading in the industry, and all of a sudden you've got to put down 2-meter floor vinyls, you can't have anyone near the counter, you can't get the staff to help them to load their van, to unload the stuff that they had before, to show them where things are, then suddenly that kind of experience is brought back to its very basic level, which is where you've been trying to move away from. So that's a real big challenge to the plans that people had in place. People have been completely bombarded with emails and social posts. So the background has become so noisy because as people had less channels to market through with physical presence, they just started to just completely bombard people's inboxes with the things that they wanted to tell them. And that's really made people switch off. So therefore, the chance of actually getting your message through in those channels is becoming kind of increasingly difficult. Consumers are sick of being told the same things. And so you look at the advertising that's happened over the last 3 months, and one of the big pieces of research says that the two things that consumers hate the most now are things that say we're in this together or we care. Because a lot of the time what they say is that the brands don't really, they're not showing that they care or doing anything particularly caring. They're just using it as a punchline to try and sell something. And I think, you can see that in the brands where they have made a real tried to make a real difference and connection, that those are the ones that have resonated the most with people. There's starting to be a real trend around nostalgia. Whenever you get a difficult or uncertain time, then it does start to remind people of kind of happier times that are less complicated. And again, you'll see with things like ITV sports schedule where, it's great for me because I'm a Coventry City fan. So watching the 1987 Cup final on ITV was an experience. But the fact that you've got, your Italian 90s being showed, Euro 96, it's like these are all the games that people are talking about with a real passion because they remember being in the pub, they remember kind of being at school, etc. And these are the things that's kind of a trend towards when people are worried about other things. And then there's a rediscovery of less disposable ways of spending time and money. So actually, while people were out exercising and they suddenly realised that, actually, you know what, if I buy my two kids a bike, we can do stuff every single day. Whereas I was spending money before on the cinema, on 10-pin bowling, whatever the things are that they're not allowed to do at the moment. And actually, even things like baking at home with the kids has actually become like a hobby and an art form. And actually, people are starting to get their heads around that. And it takes 21, 22 days, according to psychologists, to form or break a habit. And in this times, obviously, people are changing the way they behave, and then that's going to be a challenge for some brands to obviously try and change that behavior back as well. So what I thought I'd do was just quickly run through over the last 2 months, particularly. I, as MD of WAA Chosen, have been picking up the phone to senior people in our clients and answering quite a few questions about what they should be doing or what my thoughts were. And I thought, actually, if I could give you guys the 5 questions that we've been asked the most, that would be potentially a good thought starter. So kind of question 1, and probably the most common, is can we stick to our original marketing plan for the year? So we've invested tons of money and time. We've got sign off. We've got a board who believe in this plan. Is it still relevant, and can we still use it? And the honest answer to that is that it does depend what the plan is. But in truth, the world's changed quite a lot. And what you need to do is revisit that plan and look at the areas with this lens in terms of how empathetic is that plan now to people. So actually, if we've got a marketing plan that shows no empathy to the fact that people might have been on reduced wages, furloughed money, that actually they won't be able to behave in the way that we expected them to in the run up to Christmas, that kind of thing, then that's not going to work very well. The objectives are likely to be different. So short versus long-term objectives. So for instance, one of the big clients that had a few weeks ago had previously been very focused in their plan on brand building. So by the end of the year, they wanted their brand to be the most famous in their sector. And it was a challenge that was more than achievable. Actually, what they need now is to get customers, new customers, and get them spending. So actually, they need a recruitment drive that is much more focused on engagement and spend and driving people very directly to action than some of this softer brand building that would have given a much longer term platform for them to kind of kill off their competition. The target customer might have changed or be refined, and this is something I can talk about a bit more in the Q&A, but actually if you think about who is likely to have kind of more or less disposable income as we come out of this period, it might be that you're trying to actually reach a person that's slightly different to who you originally envisaged. And also the competitive set's likely to be different. So you might have been, and I'll take a pub example, but there's a huge amount of independent pubs that may not survive this period and won't come back at all. So if they were in your competitive set before, and the same with restaurants, then actually it might be that you've got a different view of what that world looks like. And also the reopening curve needs to be addressed. So there will be a period where there's a honeymoon for businesses. So, talking about retail doing effectively things like Boxing Day sales on June the 15th when they come back. But there will obviously be a curve around that and a kind of bit of a roller coaster. So understanding that and the way that you formulate your marketing through that period is going to be key to people as well. Question 2, shall we just write this year off and concentrate on marketing on 2021? And again, this is more common than you'll think, that there is boardrooms having this conversation. And the key thing in this is actually the relationship with clients and customers, which is, it's very difficult to turn the tap on and off. And actually, if you do press the pause button and you don't engage with people, then actually restarting that engine next year is difficult. And you might actually be concentrating on marketing way beyond 2021 and into 22 if you want to do anything effective, if you press the pause button for that length of time. There are massive opportunities out there at the moment. Because I talked about things like the competitive set and that kind of thing. So behaving in this way just because of the income stream that you might have had over the last few months isn't not necessarily the right thing to do. And there is a chance to kind of almost put your foot on the throat of your competition as you come out of this period. Clearly, there's a perception thing from a PR point of view, which is research says that people think that businesses that go quiet are in trouble, and that obviously that means that there's less confidence in trading with them because you don't know how certain that future is going to be. And then momentum is a difficult thing to build, both for your own staff and for customers. So actually being aware that if you do stop doing something, then it's very difficult to pick up where you left off. Question 3. So should we be doing anything that we had not planned before? I think the answer to this is probably yes, because things have changed so much. Actually, people's attitudes might be different as well. So, for instance, we talked a lot with clients about things like data exchange. So in the past, if you take the example, for instance, of going to a golf course and you go to pay for your green fees and they ask you if you'd like to give your email address, the answer a lot of the time would be not really. What do I get of it? I've still got to pay to play golf and I know you're going to send me stuff. Whereas actually at the moment, because you can't go in the pro shop, you can only pay online. So therefore you need to set up an account. So your reward for being able to play is the fact that you exchange your data. So you can start to transact with people slightly differently than you could before. And it's become more acceptable. People will have seen that B&Q, for instance, announced the other day that they're not going to take cash in any business now ever again in the future. And that would have been a very strange thing to tell customers and consumers 4 months ago, but now it seems really natural and almost very acceptable. And they've removed a barrier from their business that was an admin headache for a business of that size. direct mail and targeting. So I talked about Send earlier and the expertise that they have. And we also talked about digital bombardment, and a lot of people didn't have direct mail in their plans because it was cheaper potentially and easier to actually reach people via things like social media and email. But with that background noise and with people being at home more and actually the nostalgia trend, things like DM has suddenly again become a great way of really reaching people and actually getting them to engage with your brand. And there's a lot of things going on in that area at the moment, like very strong deals with Royal Mail for new customers that haven't done DM before. Ascend have got the expertise where they can start looking at your potential audiences. You've got permission to market them in a way that sometimes people don't realize that you have, because there's a bit of a fear about the data side of it, but actually that is actually very surmountable. So there's things like this that people might not have had in their plan that they can turn to. Content creation with a shelf life. So actually starting to look at things that said, like, actually I could produce this bit of content and it can live in my business for 6 to 12 months. So I don't want to be disposable, because I need to make sure that the assets I've got are constantly talking about the business in the right way. And things like reward programs and thank you mechanics. So very counterintuitively, when you've been struggling to make money, now might be the right time to reward customers by giving them financial breaks from some of the ways that they normally spend. And that's again going to kind of depend and differentiate business by business, and kind of adding value to key periods to bring forward spend. So actually, how can we start to drag people's table bookings for Christmas or that kind of thing forward, so that we can start making money, but they obviously give us the guarantee and some certainty about our future. So that would be different to what would have been in the original plans. Are there any massive opportunities? The answer to this is definitely yes. So I don't think I've ever seen sponsorship, for instance, so affordable. We're working on a deal for a client at the moment, which was a £250,000 package, which is potentially available for around £75,000. And the impact of it will be huge. And there is deals to be done out there because of what's happening. And so they're the time where brands that are the bravest and actually can invest are going to get opportunities that in a few years' time will look amazing. TV advertising and trials. So brands that would always thought like, oh, I can't afford to go on TV, we haven't got enough outlets, or we haven't got the critical mass. All of a sudden there's taster deals so that brands can get onto TV for as little as £10,000 to £15,000. So again, the opportunity for people to do things that they never thought that they could in that plan. I've talked about direct mail, and actually with people home working, school's still off in a lot of age groups, and people starting to kind of see their post as the most personalised thing that they get, and actually think that they have got a bit of time to interact with, then actually that is a huge opportunity to start driving some sales. Virtual reality and experiences. So actually, can you bring the physical environment into a non-physical space, and then kind of private and exclusive treatment? So actually, how do I give these people something that they will see as being very different and very focused on them? And then finally, should we unfurlough the marketing team or cut the team completely? So I think this is very strongly, and again, I'll talk about this a bit more if we want to in the Q&A, but it's actually the same thing as the marketing plan, which is understanding what's each person's focus. What does our objective look like now for marketing? Do we have a 100-day marketing plan, and how does those people sit together? How replaceable might they be in the future? If it's a skill set, if you've got an amazing social media person and you might lose them, but you're expecting the start of next year that you'd be turning that function back on, it could be very false economy. And then, like, actually, if we did lose those people or we don't have them there, how can these objectives be met elsewhere in the business? So like understanding those questions first will really help people to make that decision. And then finally, from our point of view, I talked a bit about our kind of heritage and Andy Wilson's heritage in the area. And we are desperate to play a really key part in kind of helping get Birmingham business back on track. So we're actually, we work with people like the M6 toll. So infrastructure wise in Birmingham, we have some real key conversations with businesses in the area, but we want to help everyone. So we're happy to help. We'll advise on anything we can. We'll put you in touch with smaller suppliers if you might not necessarily be right for partnership with WAA, but actually you need help and assistance. One of the things that we have got is a huge network of really skilled people that we know and trust that we would be happy to put you in touch with. We'll look at marketing plans for you and help you if we can. We're more than willing to do that. We've got some great facilities here in Sutton Coldfield. We've got a collaboration centre, which is a big space. We've set it out now. It's all social distance friendly. We can actually allow you to use that space both for your own teams, but also to work with our teams. And we'd be more than happy to explain to you how we can do that. We can recommend some of the key opportunities that I've mentioned. So if people are interested in things like how they engage with things like direct mail, what the challenges might be for their business, then we're more than happy to explain and help bring some of those suggestions to life. And then form partnerships as well. So actually, if there's clients that are on our roster, or there's things that you're doing that we can interact with, then one of the things that we've had huge success with is forming partnerships both with us as an agency and also with third-party partnerships amongst our client base as well. So we'll always try and do that where possible. So if people do want to get in touch with us, we've got Will, that's head of our sales and marketing here at the business, and he will make sure that you can reach me or whoever the most relevant person in our organisation is to help understand your queries and questions.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Dan. That was really fascinating sort of insight, and I suppose, as you say, the size of clients you work with, your multinational, almost, worldwide companies in some cases, but in a way, there's similar sort of themes across any size of business, isn't it? I think that's a key area. I would certainly, again, encourage anyone to ask questions. I can see a few being typed down now. I'll introduce Katie as well. Katie, as I said, is our Sutton Chamber president, and obviously, I think recruited Dan many moons ago. She seemed to remember some years back potentially.
I'm not sure I remember that.
Yeah. So Katie, over to you. And if you want to start the questions and start,
yeah,
that'd be great. Thanks, Tom. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dan. I thought that was really brilliant presentation. It's really good to hear real questions that are obviously coming from your client base at the moment. The first question, if you don't mind, I was going to put to you, but as a big employer in Sutton Coldfield, and from your point of view as an MD, what are WAA Chosen doing, and what differences and what changes have you made as a business? Well,
I think that's kind of twofold, really. One is during this period, it's been a huge focus of mine and the management team here at the business to make sure that we kept our team as engaged and close as possible. One of our biggest, I think, competitive advantages as an agency is our culture, and obviously the difficulty when you tell everyone that we're going to have to go and work from home, and it's fine, you can have Microsoft Teams and things like this today, shows you how great technology is, but in my view, you can't beat collaboration and face-to-face stuff, and my concern was that it would be difficult for team members. So we've built a whole program around, we have a Monday morning the week ahead where every single person in the company joins and talks through what we're doing for clients, what their key challenges are, and how they're going to work together with the rest of the team. We have training Tuesdays, which we put online. So there is a training session every week for people to log into, and that can be anything from someone from our Stir Hub talking about the latest trends in the food and drink sector, right through to specific skills like crisis communications that people can listen to and understand. We have Wellness Wednesday where people will do things from, last week I think there was one of our team members that's an amazing cook, did some baking stuff for people. We've got a guy that's fitness obsessed that's done created some workout routines for people to do at their home with no equipment. And then we have that was the week that was on a Friday which is a bit more light-hearted, but people can chat through about their challenges, the successes for clients. So our working week, even from home, has involved a huge amount of kind of cultural connection with each other. And then that's obviously what we've done to kind of bring that back to the office. So whilst we've had to split into two teams for health and safety reasons, so we've now got a red and a blue team that are coming back to the office so that we can protect the team and our clients from any kind of problems from that regard. But actually we've kept all those things going so that everyone stays connected in that period.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's quite a few things there that companies can be inspired by and actually probably borrow from you. So thank you for that.
No,
a question coming from Verity Stokes. I think Jess is going to put it on the screen for us. So thank you for your presentation, Dan. Do you think that direct mail works for B2B as well as it does for B2C? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've seen actually, again, in that kind of nostalgia trend almost, is that you are getting people, particularly senior people in B2B organisations who are taking much more notice of DM, particularly where it's clever, it's personalised, and it's easy to see that it's got a relevance. So what I would say is that it's really important what the content is and also how it's targeted. So even things as kind of personalised as the outside of the envelopes and what that messaging says, but making sure you've got the right person in an organisation. And I know from personal experience as a managing director, I'm probably personally opening and engaging with more mail now than I did a few years ago, because actually the one thing that I struggle with is going through what look like kind of cold emails, because I end up deleting them because I get up in the morning, I get to my desk in the morning and I might have 20 kind of mail shot emails, whereas actually when I'm having a cup of tea at my desk, having like some personalized DM that's relevant to what we do as a business is sometimes quite engaging. And I probably found over the last few months that I'll be handing it to our HR director or to our office manager to say, look, this looks quite interesting. Why don't you have a chat to them, or why don't you get them in? So I do think it's kind of come full circle a little bit. And as I say, I see that trend growing.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think because it is more of a rarity, it has a more impact, but the message is so important. We've got another question here from Paul Holding. So what advice do you have for winning new business in a B2B setting without the ability to visit potential clients? We're looking for guidance on how to find clients and make a meaningful connection with them. Gosh, that's a big question.
It is a big question. And, I totally empathise because during this spell, we've actually pitched for some new business a couple of times and done it virtually like this. And it's a very different experience that, my personal kind of preference is always to be face to face with people. I think you can misunderstand like tone of voice. My jokes go over people's head, over people's head, and we're face to face. But in a digital environment, I think they definitely fall flat. So I do find some like some tumbleweed moments when we're online. So it is difficult, but I think again, like we talked in the trends about personalization and targeting, and I think the biggest thing that you can do is spend time researching your audience and understand who you're looking for and what their motivations are, because empathy is massive, particularly in this period. And if you've got a product and you can understand someone's job title, so I'm going to pick on something really weird, but if you're trying to sell tires to a B2B setting, and you want a fleet manager, and you want to understand then actually what their challenges are, what are they going to be being beaten up in the boardroom for. So it's like, actually they've got to spend less money, they've got to get more fuel economy, they've got to make their emissions better. And so that actually anything that you do engage them with really kind of hits the spot in terms of thinking, God, this organization, these people really understand what I'm dealing with day to day. Because the biggest thing we ever hear is that half the people I get stuff from just don't live in the real world. They don't understand what a fleet manager does all day. They don't understand the fact that I've got to go and stand and get, excuse my French, a bollocking for the fact that, you know, my drivers haven't done this, or like I haven't hit my budget for this month. They're then saying to me like, oh, get the world's best looking tire. I don't care what it looks like. So that it's that empathy and understanding your audience before you jump in is going to be more and more important when you're trying to deal on messages on LinkedIn or DM or whatever it might be. It's got to be so targeted.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, actually, because it's such a huge question, but actually that's a brilliant place to start. You know, understanding who you're speaking to is the crucial key, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got something here from a good point actually from Lisa Harrison, just saying in terms of DM, do you have any tips about overcoming the fact that a lot of people obviously are still working from home, and that may well continue, so office post is not being collected as much, so it's such a challenge to get DM to the right person. How are you overcoming that with clients at the minute?
Yeah, so I mean, there are techniques around the kind of the data side of it. I will admit that I'm not a huge DM expert. In Send, we do have people that kind of understand both in terms of how you link data records, and also you get kind of the ability to understand, like, for instance, if you've got a particularly person at an organization, so like one of our clients I know, they actually are currently redirecting their mail. You can see that kind of stuff. So there are ways of doing it, and I would encourage people, if they are interested, to speak to Will and set up a call with Send, because I don't want to give people the wrong information about specifics. But I know that's obviously been a challenge that other people have faced, and there are some quite clever ways around it.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. You mentioned in someone's just asked where you are. Rent Court. I can.
Rent Court. That's right. Yeah.
Down at the bottom by TGI.
Yeah. So basically, if you ever thought that was just a bus lane before TGI's, then that's the reason why you don't know where it is.
That's why you can bibs all the time. You mentioned in one of your questions one of your questions was, should we be cutting marketing teams, and should we be keeping marketing teams on furlough? And you very strongly said absolutely not. And for people to disappear while their competitors are making the right kind of noises is quite dangerous. But you said you wanted to come back to that and speak a little bit more about it. Do you think people should be using their marketing teams in different capacities in this time to keep them?
Yeah, Katie, it's really easy for me to say to people, be brave. Yeah. And it's not so easy to do. And, you know, and I sit running a business where I know how hard it is to be brave when you're looking at cash flow and the outgoings at the same time you're trying to make brave decisions. But the problem is that what we have seen, particularly in things like other recessions, and I mentioned about after post-Brexit, is that the people that stalled decision making they didn't just stall it for the period that they thought. They stalled it for about another 6 to 9 months because it took that long to get going. Actually, people's habits had changed. They'd found new suppliers, and they'd started to build up other relationships. So it's really difficult to go cold on people. So whilst sometimes marketing is one of the easiest disciplines to cut, because it might be sensible thinking, well, actually, if I've got a sales guy or if I've got a salesperson, they're going to be bringing money in through the door. In reality, like, actually what you're doing is you're making all of those people you're talking about, their jobs 10 times as hard, because you're not giving them the kind of the merchandise in the same way. So it is difficult, but the longer you leave it, the slower the return is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something that's come up in a lot of the conversations that I'm having is that a lot of the things that, and you touched on this in your questions, a lot of the changes that are happening now, how people have become much more digital, are actually just a sign of trends that we would have seen over the next 10 years. And they're sort of just, this lockdown has actually just as a bit of a catalyst. And that's our window, isn't it? These trends we were going to see anyway over the next 10 years, and it's almost just like squashed it all into this this period of time, and we've had a bit of a fast forward effect. Do you agree with that? Do you think a lot of the things that are happening, like the cashless, things, it seems like that was going that way anyway?
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think it's sped up where we were going anyway. I think things like the digital conferences and that kind of thing. The prevalence of that, it was clearly moving to that trend. And I think you're right, and that's why some of it, I think people have got to seize the opportunity. Because take my B&Q example, is that I imagine B&Q have been wanting to do things like cashless stores for a long time, and they've probably had in their plan that they would. But actually, the public are currently very tolerant of cashless payment because it's to their benefit and protection. So actually, why not make that decision now? And that's what I think you find that people will take that opportunity. I talked about things like data exchange, and actually there's some things now that it's kind of like, seize the moment, because it's a great chance you might have had in your plan for 2 years ago. But if it's on people's minds now, then don't just stick to the timeline that you had before. Right. Okay. I've just think, have we got time for one last question, Chris?
Yes, Dan. Yeah. If we can, put the last question from Judith, that'd be great, and then we'll ask for your final thoughts.
Okay, we've got a question from Judith here, who I believe you know quite well from Art Media, the video guys in Bold Media. Mark Rickson, an Australian marketing professor, has said that the term, the new normal, the expression, is BS. Be interesting to know if you agree with that, Dan, and why. The new normal. What do you think of that term?
Luckily, I don't think I say the new normal. So, I mean, the fact is, I do to a certain extent, I do agree that it is a bit of nonsense, because I kind of think like the new normal is a way of people expressing that they don't know what's going to happen, is the truth. And, and I think that's fine to say, that the truth is that nobody has got a crystal ball here. And, when people are saying, the new normal for pubs is going to be that, that people do X, Y, and Z, and you get your own glasses and you put them in the dishwasher, and everyone's going to accept it, is that the truth is no one does really know. And there's a good chance actually that the like you've just said, the new normal is just a fast forward version of normal. We've just skipped a year because everything's has encouraged us to do that. So I think my view is it probably is a bit of nonsense, but it's a soundbite that's easy to use. And like I say, I think it's good in a boardroom, because when you say this is going to be the new normal, everyone just sagely nods, and that just lets you off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. That's really good. Dan.
Brilliant, and we'll keep an eye, Dan, if you ever come out with that word in the next few years. We'll call you back to this webinar. Katie, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate your help and your work on the question side. I think it really sort of brought more understanding around some of those questions. And Dan, it's a pleasure to hear from you and speak to you. I think picking up on a few things that you said, I think you mentioned just towards the end there about being brave, and I think that sort of mantra and that thought of a business like B&Q doing something like the cashless side, or whatever business it is, being brave and being out there and doing things is probably more important than ever on the marketing side. And I think I'm sure you guys will be working with your clients to do that as we move forward. Brilliant. If there's any further questions from anybody, obviously pick up with Dan or with Katie offline. Please feedback to us how you found the webinar. It's these are great to be able to talk about these really important aspects to business from a Sutton Coldfield point of view with a business like WAA Chosen. Now everyone knows where they are as well, which is a good start as well. But genuinely, it's an absolute pleasure to have Dan here on the call talking about some of those key areas. We'll do a recording of the webinar on YouTube. That'll go up in the next few days. Again, any other questions, please do get in touch with Dan or Katie or myself offline. And thank you all. Final thing from the chamber, obviously, again, please continue to support some of our areas. Keep talking to us. Keep spreading the word about some of your experiences. Be positive, be brave, as Dan said, and thank you all. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Chris.